Hey guys, my name is Johanna and this is my first YouTube video. I started watching YouTube a few years ago and it's just been something that's kind of kept me company during the pandemic, so I thought that I would give my own hand a try at it. So for my first video, I'm just going to be showing off some of my eyeshadow palette collection. All right, so I have everything spread out on my ottoman here. I'm not going to overthink it too much, and we'll just kind of dive right in. So a couple of the oldest palettes in my collection are from Lime Crime. And it is the Venus 1 and the Venus 2. This one has kind of a very pre-modern Renaissance feel to it. It came out before modern Renaissance really kind of put this color scheme on the map. So they kind of, in my opinion, they're kind of a trendsetter. Same thing with the Venus 2. This color story you can see really is reminiscent of Subculture, but they did it first. So I don't feel like they got a ton of recognition for kind of being on top of trends there, but we'll see what they do in the future. Next up, I can kind of hit some one-off palettes that I have. So these are going to be palettes that I only have one palette from these brands. So the first one is Pat McGrath. This is my only Pat McGrath palette. And this is, I believe it's the Mothership 5. I could be wrong on that though. This one, it's kind of hard to see the shifts, but these 4 shades on the end are considered like their special shade formula. They definitely have like a really interesting shift to them. They work best with glitter glue. I don't reach for this palette as much as I should, but definitely those 4 special shades on the end are definitely kind of what make that palette worth it. All right, next up, this is kind of a newer palette for me, and it's the only thing that I have from Menagerie. They are an indie brand. I love their packaging. You can tell that they put a ton of thought into their products, so I'm really excited. I know that they have a cute little bat themed palette that's coming out soon, so I'm excited to see what that ends up looking like. This is what the inside looks like. It's just super pretty. The shimmers in here also have really pretty shifts to them. I don't know if you can kind of see it, but it's pretty duochromy in my opinion. So I can't wait to try more from them. Another new palette to my collection is from Glamlight. And I haven't used this palette too many times yet, but I am freaking stoked. Look at that. This is the Ice Cream Dream palette, and I love everything about this palette. Like, the packaging is super cute. It's got these little sprinkles in there that move. It's big, but it's not too big. It's not clunky. It's easy to store. And that color story. Look at it. It's so freaking pretty. That's kind of some of what I have on my eyes right now. It's kind of hard to tell with my glasses on, but I really like it. And I hope probably end up picking up their cake palette eventually, but I just couldn't justify it right now. Next up, this is one that I got for Christmas a few years ago. I didn't know if I should put that in with my eyeshadow palettes or not. It's technically a face and eye palette. I just tossed it in here. It's really more of a contour palette than anything, but it's from Lunatic Labs, and it is just a really unique, cool toned contour blush palette. I didn't put any of my other blush palettes or highlight palettes or anything like that in with this. The rest of them are strictly eyeshadow palettes, so don't ask me why I felt like tossing this one in here, but I don't use it. I don't know. It's just different than my other palettes, so I decided to throw it in here. Then this is the newest one to my collection, I think. Actually, I think I said one of the other ones was, but this is the Sigma Enchanted palette. This packaging is super up my alley. It's got a holographic. It's so pretty. I wish it was a little bit thinner. It's a little bit chunky for my taste. But the metallics in here are super, super pretty. If I could redesign this package, I would definitely, or redesign the palette, I would definitely kind of change some of these darker ones that are similar in tones. But I think that the lighter side of the palette definitely makes it worth it for me, even if I'm not going to use the darker ones quite as much. This one barely even counts as a palette, but I tossed it in here anyway because I own it. It's been sitting in my vanity. It has been used before, embarrassingly enough, but this is just like a cheap, crappy glitter palette from Spiro Halloween. I just use it for costume purposes. I'm sure it's terrible to even put on your skin, much less being eye safe, but it's been used before, so it got tossed in there. And then we'll do Juvia's Place. So Juvia's Place, I have 3 Juvia's Place palettes. They are one of their their bigger 9-pan palettes. The first one that I ever got was this one, which is the Deuce palette. Has kind of a unique color story to it. I didn't know how I felt about it at first, but I have come to really like it. This kind of mint green color is super, super pretty. Am I the only one that is too immature to handle the name Deuce? Because every time I pull this palette out, I can't take it seriously. I wish it had a different name. Yeah. And then we've got Zulu. And this is another palette that the packaging, it's kind of hard to see, but it does have a little bit of like a multicolored holographic shift to it. It's super, super pretty, but the inside, you just have these really nice brights. The pan sizes are huge. This middle green shade is super, super pretty. I love the teal. It's really, really nice and really affordable. The prices on these are fantastic. And then we've got the Warrior. And this one is very similar to the Zulu, so you definitely don't need both. Personally, here is a good comparison of them. But you can see that there's definitely a lot of similarities. The undertones in like the yellows and the reds are different. Same with the purples. They do swatch slightly different. It's just kind of personal preference. When it comes to eyeshadows, I am definitely somebody who, what I need and what I have is definitely not the same thing. So if I see something that are similar like this, but they're just different enough, I'll pick them up anyway. And I did. Then let's do Huda Beauty. So these are the, we've got the Desert Dusk and the New Nudes. So Desert Dusk, this one was super, super popular when it first launched. It definitely is unique in like the amount of textures that it has in it. It's kind of one of the first brands that I remember putting pressed glitters in palettes. I'm not a huge fan of the Huda formula just because it is very, very dry. I do prefer something that is a little bit more powdery. It's not everybody's preference, but I just feel like formulas that are a little bit more powdery seem to blend a little bit easier. So they're not the easiest to blend. It does take some kind of work to build them up. But the color stories is gorgeous. This is the New Nudes. And this is kind of like my ideal nude color story. I really like mauve tones. I'm very, very fair skinned. As I'm sure you can see, I'm white as heck. So kind of these tones are a little bit more flattering to me than just like a standard brown. But again, I don't reach for it quite as much just because it is that drier formula. I wish it was a little bit creamier, a little bit easier to work with. Then we will do BH Cosmetics. So I have two palettes from BH. We've got the Zodiac and the Aurora Lights. The Aurora Lights is a super, super pretty, bright, colorful palette. I don't feel like this one gets a ton of love, and I think probably the reason for that is just the fact that it is an all shimmer palette. A lot of people don't like all shimmer palettes. It's totally just personal preference, but it is definitely like a companion palette. Not really one that you would use on its own. But you can see there, super reflective, super pretty. BH's baked shadow formula is really nice. And another nice thing about it is that you can use them dry or wet. So if you like get a dampened brush, spray it with a little bit of Fix Plus or like the Pixie Glow Mist spray, and then use them damp, like the color payoff and the amount of like reflectivity and metallic shine to it is awesome. And then we've got the Zodiac. I feel like the Zodiac palette, there was a little period of time where I feel like a lot of people were talking about it, but it's kind of like the Subculture Plus, in my opinion. So you've got like a very grungy matte selection of shadows in the center, and then around the outside you have kind of like accompanying shimmer shades in that baked formula, and then like a baked highlighter shade in the middle. I don't reach for this one quite as often as I should, just because it is kind of bulky, but the shade selection is really nice. I think it is a really good comprehensive palette, especially for a beginner. If you don't have a ton of stuff, it's a good way to kind of expand your collection of grungy shades without spending much money. Next up, let's do Urban Decay. I feel like Urban Decay has kind of been falling off the map lately, which I think all of YouTube is kind of in agreement with. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think a lot of people are kind of over Urban Decay right now. They kind of need to breathe some life back into their products, but I have 3 Urban Decay palettes. The first one, it kind of barely even counts as a palette. It's actually just like a little quad of single shadows that I put together myself. There are 2 kind of unique shades in here. One is the Zodiac, or the Moon Dust shadow, and I believe the shade is Zodiac. But it's like a really pretty kind of a duochrome. Like it's more of like a topper shade. It's pretty sheer, but it's kind of got that red blue base to it. They're pretty easy to find in palettes these days, that red blue base, but I know that back in the day there wasn't quite as many out there and it was a little bit more unique. And then the other ones, one of them is like kind of a yellow to red duochrome. I've actually worn it as a highlighter before. It's a little too dark for my skin tone to do that, but I do kind of like the effect that it gives. And then the other 2 I actually use more as like blushy highlights, or like a highlightery blush. I use them on my cheeks, the point is. So there's that. This one is one of the oldest palettes in my collection, and is honestly not something that I should still be using because I'm sure it's expired. It's very expired. But this is the Vice 3. If you've been watching YouTube for a while, you might remember just how popular the Vice palettes were. Like when Urban Decay would first launch a Vice palette, they were hard to get your hands on. They were expensive. I mean, these days, like you see stuff like Pat McGrath and Natasha Denona, so the price tag isn't quite as shocking, but at least back then when I didn't have a ton of money to spend on makeup, I remember this being like a pretty big deal ordering it. But the inside just looks like this. I don't really reach for this as much anymore. Like I said, it's definitely too old to like safely use. But these 2 shades I do use occasionally with glitter glue. It's just really They're really intense, like glittery shades. I don't feel like that really did them justice, but on top of a glitter glue, they do perform really nice, and they are definitely sparkly and unique compared to other things that I have in my collection. And then last from Urban Decay is one that I'm sure everybody knows. And this is the Urban Decay Electric palette. And this is a pressed pigment palette. So definitely stains your lids if you're not careful. But I love this palette. It's so good, even now. Even though I'm sure the formula has changed at this point. But like this neon green, I love it so much. Hopefully they reintroduce this eventually because people would buy it. It's really good, and I think that Urban Decay kind of needs something like this to revive their brand. Same thing with the Vice palettes. I feel like if they could relaunch their Vice palettes, like in a new, updated format with modern color selections and shades, I feel like that would really help them out, but it's not really what they're doing these days. Okay. And then we've got Melt Cosmetics. I have 2 Melt palettes. We've got the Smoke Sessions and 420. So here is the Smoke Sessions palette. Here is this. They have really pretty grungy metallic, kind of chunky shimmers. I know a lot of people had issues with their Smoke Sessions palettes, kind of the shimmers puffing up in the pans. I have never had any issues with it. Mine performed great, so I don't know if I just got lucky or if other people kind of had bad batch issues, but I like it. It's super, super cute. I remember when I bought it, I actually stayed up late so I could catch the launch of it and order it like right at midnight. And then we've got the 420 palette. So I love this packaging. Like if you remember like in the 90s, how they had like those, I don't know, like they would have like folders and stuff like that had this like shifty artwork on them. Like you can see it move. I love it. It's so cute. I love what Melt does with their packaging. I feel like they put so much thought into their stuff. Unfortunately, it sounds like their formulas are pretty hit or miss. Like I said, I only have these 2 palettes, so I can't speak for the rest of their line, but I definitely want more things from them. But this is what the color story of this one looks like. It's just super grungy, gross, just kind of the best swampy, dirty vibes ever, and I love it. A lot of people did have issues with this palette. I know a lot of people didn't care for the formula of it. They found it kind of patchy and hard to blend. Personally, I really like it. I don't have any issues with it myself, but I mean, it totally comes down to personal preference and how you prefer to apply your makeup. So I can see why other people wouldn't like it, but I was still very surprised by the amount of negative reviews it got. All right, then we will do Viseart or Viseart. I'm honestly not sure how to pronounce it, and I don't think anybody on YouTube knows how to pronounce it. Every video I watch, everybody's like, these are my Viseart palettes, Viseart, Viseart. I don't know. Doesn't matter. You guys know what I'm talking about. So this one is the Editorial Brights, and it is exactly what it says. I know a lot of the criticism for Viseart, whatever, has to do with like their packaging, because they are an expensive brand, but their packaging is pretty lightweight. So a lot of people feel like it is cheaper feeling than it should be. Honestly, I really like this, and I have no complaints about the packaging on this, just because it's lightweight. I can see exactly what I'm going for. I like how you can see all the shadows on the top. So I like it personally, but I can kind of see where they're coming from. And then this other one is the Viseart Grand Pro Volume 2. So this is another palette that I would not consider a standalone palette. Again, it is all shimmers, but they do have a variety of different finishes in here. And this was not a cheap palette either. But this is what she looks like. And she is really pretty. Oh, look at it. This shade right here, if you can see it, that one is gorgeous. Like one of my favorite shades in my collection. It's this one right here. So yeah, like they're real pretty. Again, performs best with glitter glue. Depends on which formula you're looking at. Another fun thing about the Viseart shadows is they all have removable pans. And that goes with their other palettes too. I mean, I'm sure probably not every single one of their palettes is like that, but like definitely their pro palettes, and then those 12 pans like the Editorial Bright. So, but here, can you see it? Oh, it's not really showing up on camera well. Okay, whatever, you get the point. Maybe eventually I'll do a look with it, and then you'll be able to tell, because you can't tell just with a little finger swatch like that. Then we've got, well, since we're doing expensive brands, let's go ahead and do Natasha Denona. So this is actually kind of like a Franken palette. Again, Natasha Denona, that brand also has removable pans. So I have taken apart some of my Natasha Denona palettes and kind of chosen some of my favorites and put them together into the packaging of the Star palette. So these are some of my favorites. This is not what the Star palette looks like otherwise. It is literally just because I have kind of taken some out and rearranged some things. The gold palette, this is my favorite packaging out of the Natasha Denona palettes. This is actually just kind of like, I threw the shades that I don't use as much in here. So it's kind of boring. We don't really reach for this one, but it's because all my favorite shades are together in that other one. And then we have the Natasha Denona Sunset palette. So this is one of the originals that kind of put Natasha Denona on the map. My husband actually got this for me for Christmas. Looks like this, just a very fiery kind of neutral story with the twist. I don't reach for these types of colors quite as often. I usually prefer cool tones, but I'm glad that I have it in my collection. I can't remember if I've rearranged anything in this one or not, but I do like having it on hand. And I do actually have some mini Natasha Denona palettes as well, which I just realized I forgot to grab. So we'll come back to that after I go through the rest of the palettes. Then let's do our ABH palettes. I have 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yes, so I have six of the Anastasia palettes. They've put out a ton lately, and I know a lot of people aren't super pleased with that. So I do not own all of them. And honestly, I have no desire to own all of them. So I've just collected my favorites. The original one, the one everybody knows, Modern Renaissance. We've got a lot of pan in my Anastasia shadows. And again, it's because I like that powdery formula. I go through it a lot faster than something that is more hard pressed. So yeah, you can see I've got plenty of pan on there. Subculture is next. And again, this palette was the one that caused tons of controversy when it first launched. I feel like Subculture Gate, you know, lots of pictures of like the people's ridiculous kick up and stuff like that. Again, I haven't had issues with it. I like it. It takes a little bit more work to get stuff to blend out. But I think that the color story and the level of pigmentation for myself personally is worth it. I'm glad I have it. I would repurchase it. Third, we have Norvina. And this one, I really like this one as well. I like how it's got one row of shimmers and one row of mattes. I wish that they would kind of do that formula in some of their other ones rather than having them all jumbled up. But I don't know if I've hit pan in this one. I've almost hit pan in this Dreamer shade. But yeah, it's like one of the prettiest brow bone shades that I have. It's a really pretty highlight too. Then we've got Sultry. Sultry is probably my favorite neutral palette, probably of all time. And you can see, again, this is a kind of a neutral palette with a twist. I love that it's cool toned. Good cool tone neutral palettes are so hard to find. I'm really glad that 2021 seems to be more of a year of cool tones, because I'm sure I'll be buying more with a similar color story. Again, I've got pan in that one. It's like my favorite setting shade. This twig shade is such a nice taupe. And this black, I really like this black. Like out of the blacks in my collection, that's probably the one that I reach for the most when I'm going into like set my eyeliner or kind of tight line things in my lashes. So it's a good one. I don't know why they made it limited edition. I feel like that was such a stupid decision on their part. Then I've got Jackie Aina. I love this packaging. I try not to be somebody that's like sold solely by packaging, but if I were to make my own makeup palette, like if I had a brand deal, like this type of thing would be completely up my alley. I love it. I love the packaging. I love the packaging more than the inside. And a lot of people really like the inside. And I do like the inside. The inside's pretty too, but I don't reach for it quite as much. I think just because it is darker, I have to put a little bit more thought into using it. But this shade right here, this Zam shade in the corner, I feel like it performs really similarly to the Natasha Denona, kind of like those chunkier textured shimmer shades. So I hope ABH puts out more shadows in that formula, because it's so sparkly. Like you can't even really see it on camera how sparkly it is compared to some of their other ones. I'm just gonna try to stop showing you swatches because it's not really doing them justice, I don't think, but it's very comparable to Natasha Denona, just that particular shade. And then lastly, from ABH, we've got the Amrezy palette. Again, I love this packaging. I think it's super cute. One pet peeve that I have with this one is that it's longer than their other ones. Look at this. Do you see this? Like I'm glad that it's big, but do you know how frustrating that is? When you've got like all of your stuff lined up in a drawer and then this one's like sticking out an inch? That is infuriating. Why would they do that? Okay. I'm over it. And then this is the middle of this one. This one does have a pressed glitter in it, 2 pressed glitters actually, which I feel like was an odd choice. I don't hate pressed glitters the way that a lot of people do, but there's really nothing special about these 2 pressed glitters. They're just like browns. I don't feel like they add anything to this. So for that reason, again, I could just chop the end off of this palette and make it the same length as the other ones. But no, they don't. But this one does have another one of those shades that I feel is very comparable to a high-end brand. That's this one right here. It's Barb. And it's a gorgeous duochrome. Maybe even a... I don't know if I'd call that a multi-chrome or not, but it's really, really nice. Okay. Then we've got, one other palette that I just have, which is kind of a one-off, that I don't have any other ones by this brand. Totally forgot to mention this one. But this is my only Morphe palette. And it is the Morphe, what is this one called? 39S, such a gem. And it is huge. This guy is like the size of my entire chest. It's gigantic. And it is a purple palette. I don't reach for this one as much as I should, again, because it's gigantic. I like the idea of big palettes, but they're such a pain to reach and like dig out of my vanity that I find myself not reaching for it as often. I feel like this palette could have been a lot smaller. It could be like half the size with just like my favorite shades from this in here, and I would be completely just as satisfied, if not more. But this middle row too is really, really unique. It's got a formula which is similar to the ColourPop Super Shock shadows. So it's actually like a bouncy, almost like a gel cream texture. So I do like how the middle has those larger shades. I've used them as like highlighty blushes and more like a cheek toppers than eyeshadows. But it is, yeah, I don't know. I like the thought that was clearly put into that palette compared to a lot of the other Morphe releases, which have been abysmal. I do try to buy mainly cruelty-free products. As you may have noticed, not everything in my collection is cruelty-free, including Morphe. Morphe is one of those brands that's really ambiguous about their cruelty-free status. So I really don't have any plans to purchase anything from them in the future. But some of these products have been gifted to me. Some of them are from before I went more cruelty-free. So I don't know. My collection is not perfect, but if I have it, it's in my collection, I'm going to use it. I'm not going to toss it. I'm not going to declutter it. The deed's been done. The product's been bought. I might as well use it. Okay. And then we will hit ColourPop. So, as you're probably not surprised, I have like a bajillion ColourPop palettes. Hopefully in 2021, I'll kind of cut back on the amount of things that I've purchased from ColourPop. But for now, I can't complain. They have good prices. Again, I mean, they are a cruelty-free brand, but their whole fast fashion, or fast makeup, really, like they're like the fast fashion of makeup. And that's kind of problematic in a lot of ways. I really don't like the amount of plastic that they use on a lot of their packaging either. I feel like the cardboard packaging is just as good, and honestly, I find that the plastic packaging is not always very sturdy. I've had things like fall out of the pans. The pans are supposed to be removable because they are magnetic, but some of those magnets are really weak, and that has caused some casualties in my ColourPop eyeshadows, which you will see here shortly. So one of the cardboard packaging ones that I have is the Biddy palette. And this one really didn't get any type of attention, which is so weird to me because it's so cute. I love this little palette. It's got like a little peachy candy color story. And I don't know if it's just because it was really limited. It was a collaboration with a YouTuber, but I'll be honest, I'm not familiar with the YouTuber at all. So I don't know if it was just really short-lived or if it's because they have 2 pressed glitters in there or what, but I really like this. I'd repurchase it. It's super cute. And then a couple more of their cardboard packaging. We've got the That's Taupe palette. And this one is, again, my type of neutrals. Just very cool toned. You've got this really, really pretty reflective color, the Super Shock formula. It's really cute. I love it. And then we have 2 that are basically companion palettes in my collection. You definitely don't need both, but again, these are my favorite types of neutrals, is taupe and like mauve. So these are the Making Mauve and then the Menage a Moi. So here is what Making Mauve looks like. Again, just super wearable. Really, really pretty. I love this palette. This palette honestly performs how I wish the Huda Beauty New Nudes did. Like, this is what I want from that. but I keep both anyway. And then the Menage a Moi palette, which, by the way, I hate that name. It's gross. I don't like it. I don't even know why. I just don't like it. But you can see what they look like next to each other. They are very similar. Definitely very similar. This one has a little bit more depth to it, but I do love both of them enough to justify having both of them in my collection. But if you are not somebody that needs every single palette under the sun, you probably don't need both. They are very similar. And now we'll move on to the plastic packaging. So everybody is pretty familiar with the 9 pans from ColourPop, and I have quite a few. And I will try to avoid dropping any on the floor and breaking them, because it has happened before, and it's probably not the last time that it's gonna happen either. So let's do some of the pink palettes. This is the Strawberry Shake palette. And this is more of like a reddish berry toned pink palette. So this is one of them that I've dropped before. I don't know if you can tell, but this shade in the corner is actually been repressed. And actually it looks all right. Usually I ruin shadows if I ever have to repress them, but I think that one survived okay. And then we've got the Ooh La La palette. So this one is more of like a blue toned pink, if you know what I mean. It does have a little bit more depth to it than some of the other 9 pans. It was kind of part of their original run of palettes, like that first kind of slew of 9 pans that everybody was really hype about that were monochrome or monochromatic, but they're actually less monochromatic than their newer launches. So there is that. And then we've got It's My Pleasure. This one is probably my favorite out of all the ColourPop 9 pans. And it is gorgeous. Again, part of that original run, has a little bit more depth to it than some of the other ones, and it's got a couple duochromes in there. And if you know anything about me, duochromes are my favorite. Duochromes and multichromes, and I am so excited for more brands to put them out, which will definitely happen in 2021, so I am stoked about that. And then here is the Lilac You a Lot. And this one, see, again, this is what I mean by the newer ones are more monochrome, because like you can see there's just not quite as much variety in that. But this one is still really pretty. Again, like this shade on the end is really unique. I really like this a lot. It's got kind of a few different formulas in there. I wouldn't get rid of it. I like it. I would rebuy that one as well. And then from there, I cannot remember what the name of the collection was called, but it was like a cloud themed collection. Or no, it was the tie-dye collection. So this is In a Trance from the tie-dye collection. I don't like most of the tie-dye collection ones as well as some of the other ones, but this one is really cute. I like the blues in there. This is more what I wanted blue-wise from the Blue Moon. I don't have the Blue Moon, surprisingly, but just I didn't feel like the shades of blue that were in that were exactly what I wanted. So this helps fill in that gap a little bit. And then we've got, from that same collection, we have the Miss Bliss palette. This is kind of what I got instead of the peach palette. You can see it right there. Honestly, this is probably my least favorite out of all the ColourPop ones that I have. I just don't feel like the ones from the tie-dye collection performed quite as nicely. I don't dislike it, but I probably wouldn't buy it again. It's just not quite exactly what I want. And then, let's see here. The other one, the last one from that tie-dye collection is called Aura and Out. There is this one. And I do like this one. I like how this one has a mix of blues and greens. And in case you can't tell, I do really like mint green. Does that surprise you? Because it should. Okay. And then another couple OGs. We've got the Aha Honey palette. I love this palette so much. I've had hair, like sunflower yellow for a really long time. I don't anymore, obviously, but I had it for like 2 years straight. So it's still my favorite hair color, and for that reason, I adore these shades. And I'll probably go back to that hair color. Okay. And then we've got the Orange You Glad palette. I always want to call this Orange Juice palette, but it's not. It's Orange You Glad. It's not Orange Juice. I wish it was Orange Juice. Okay. And then this one. I really like this one a lot. It's really pretty. I love wearing oranges. And like this little tangerine shade in the bottom that has kind of a gold shift to it. I love it. It's a cute one. And then the two newest ones. Oh shoot. Did I show this one already? I don't remember if I showed this one. Did I show it? I might not have. Did I? Well, you get to see it again. This is one of the tie-dye collection ones. I might have already shown it. I don't remember. Okay. And then from the cotton candy ones, we've got this one, which is the Cloud Spun palette. And then we have on Cloud Blue, which this is more what I wanted from the that Blue Moon palette. It's so cute. I haven't played with it too much because it is newer, but it's very lovely. All right, we are almost done. I realized that I forgot a couple things on my vanity, so I'm gonna go grab them and we'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. I realized that I forgot to grab the Huda Beauty Neon Obsessions palette. This is the orange one, if I can get it open. And that is what she looks like. I really like this palette. A lot of people did not like the Huda Beauty Neon Obsessions. This is the only one that I have, but honestly, I tried to buy the other two, and when I went to buy them, they were gone. They were discontinued because nobody else likes them, but I like them, so I would gladly have the other two. I know a lot of people didn't like them, but it's one of those things that I actually missed out on. All right, and then the other two, we've got a couple little mini Natasha Denona palettes. They're little 5-pan cuties. This one is such a good travel palette. Just like a perfect little neutral palette with her bomb formula. And then this one is the mini, what is this one? Mini Retro. Really cute. Another one of those little cool tone palettes. I really want the mini Love. I cannot wait to get my hands on that. That one is super cute too. And again, you know, you've seen what kind of color stories I like. You know, I like the mauves and the purples and pinks, so I'm really excited to get that eventually. Okay, and then the last few, I've got 3 left, just 3. We've got the Pastel Goth by Kat Von D. It's not Kat Von D Beauty anymore, which is a good thing because we all know now that she's a garbage human, which is unfortunate, but it was a really good launch. The packaging was really unique. So much thought used to be put into that brand. I'm disappointed. It's fine. It's fine. We're just gonna move on. And then this is actually the first high-end palette that I ever had. And again, this one was a gift from my husband, Aaron. He is the best gift giver on planet Earth. It's not even fair. And this is another one from Kat Von D. I used to be really big into Kat Von D. I used to have a lot more Kat Von D palettes, but I've grown up. I've matured. And honestly, the inside of this palette isn't even good. It was good when I got it. I was really into it, but things have changed. But the outside package on this is absolutely stunning. It's very like vintage, kind of vintage carnival, steampunk. Again, the packaging on it is so good. I wish they would channel some of that into this new brand, but I don't foresee it happening. This is what the inside looks like. It's nothing exciting. I don't know why I was so obsessed with it back in the day, but makeup preferences have changed, makeup formulas have changed, makeup color stories have changed. Everything is better now, and that's okay. But I still hang on to it as a reminder. This one doesn't even live with the rest of my palettes. I actually have it on a little display shelf with the packaging to the Mi Vida Loca palette, which I've decluttered. I don't have that anymore, but the packaging is just so pretty, and I like what it reminds me of, that period of time in my life, so I keep it anyway, and I keep the packaging to the Mi Vida Loca. All right, and then last but not least is actually, this is probably kind of cheating. It's not really an eyeshadow palette, but it is the only, well, I guess I have one other one. This is an empty palette where I keep all of my pressed glitters. So it is an Adept palette, if you're familiar with that. It is like a big chunky boy. And the nice thing about Adept palettes is that it has this nice little acrylic divider. So you can actually put shadows up here and shadows down here. I think it makes a lot of sense for glitter because then you have this protective piece over it that prevents the glitter from getting into other shadows. But these are all ColourPop pressed glitters. And then we've got Glass Bowl by ColourPop up here. And then I think this one is called Chickadee, but I could be wrong. But that is a one of the little special singles from Menagerie. So that is it. That is all of my palettes. Thank you for sticking in there. It was a really long video. Personally, I really like watching long palette collection videos, so sorry, not sorry, but if you liked it, maybe I will also show off my blush and my highlighter collection if that's something you'd be interested in. Thank you for watching.